Welcome to the channel Messiah's Ink. I'm Messiah, and here we got some new ink, and I got a quick few tips for y'all to help y'all with y'all shading. So there's all different types of shading. There's hat shading, there's cell shading. If you want a video on that, I got you. But for now, we're going to talk about the basic type of shading. Cartoon/anime shading, and I'm gonna help you learn how to do that so you can get better at where to place highlights and shadows. So here, as you see, I'm using IBS Paint, a free app that we all can use, so just to make this accessible to everybody. And it's even on the phone, so that should be just easier because most of us have phones. And what you do is, this is just for practice, so you go on Google or whatever software you have, Serify, whatever it's called, I don't even know, I just use it. You do there, you go and pick an image you want. I just pick Naruto, easy character. So then you go there and you copy the image, and then you go into IBS Paint and you paste it, and you move on to a new layer, and what you do is you trace the image. Now after you trace this image, you get rid of the first layer. Now you're going to add all your own coloring. You're never going to visit the Naruto original layer again, because now you have to figure out where highlights and shadows go. And instead of drawing the wrinkles in his clothes, we're going to start using shadows for that, just to give it a cleaner look. So after you trace your image, you start to color it. Now, when you color your image, especially if you're traditional, if you're like doing it traditionally, which I do 90% of the time, all you gotta do is pick out your highlight color, your base color, and then your dark color. And since it's alcohol marker, I would presume it's alcohol. You draw your base color, then you add your shadows and blend it out back with your base color. But now we're talking about digital. So the way you do this is you go on your layers and you add all your base color. If you can do this in one layer, all your base colors in one layer, but if you want, of course, you could always do it in multiple layers if that's what you prefer. So when you get all your base layers down, then you have to decide where's your light coming from. So think if you're standing outside and the sun is to the left of you. All the left of you is going to have a sort of gleam to it. It's going to be highlighted. But all the right of you is going to be darker. And then of course the middle of you is just going to be normal. It's going to be like the middle is going to be basically your base color, what the actual color is. Or even think of like a sidewalk. When there's like something hanging on the sidewalk, it makes a shadow, but in front of it, it might be the sun's gleaming on one part of it, so it has that highlight in that one spot. And that's what you gotta think about when you're drawing shadows and highlights. Basically think about it like that. Where's your light spot? I picked mine for this drawing. I picked the right side. And where's your darkest spot? I picked the left. And everything in between stays as the base color. Now, of course, if you're on traditional art, you would just add your darker colors at this moment and then blend it out with your lighter colors. But since we're digital, when you have all your base colors done, you click the eye draft tool and then you pick just a slighter lighter color and you pick highlights for you will make sense. For example, for Naruto's headband, it's something that can reflect like a mirror, it reflects light. So I put a little lighter gray. His skin, like I said, the white side is lighter, so I put just a slightly lighter color. If you want, you can always add drastic shadows, you can always shade with drastic different colors if that is so your preference. But for me, I like to have similar colors. So then we put all our highlights on the right side, because like I said, that is our highlight side. That's all the side where everything is lighter. Then we start with the shadows. I couldn't find a way to place it where his nose was, so I just went with that. His side of ear is going to be darker. His jawline and the left side of his face is always going to be darker because the left side is the shadow side. So then I always put it under his whiskers because that's just a preference of mine, just to make it pop out more. And I put it where his face is like wrinkled. And as you see, you just put them where you feel as though it's necessary. It would make sense. So then we, of course, highlight his hair, which is like a muddy brown or just a darker yellow, which is kind of the same thing, but you understand. And you highlight it where it makes sense again. So I put on the spikes of his hair and I filled it in. And that's what made sense to me. And that's the way I did it. For you, you might vary. It might just be on like the left side of his hair. Or what I mean by the left side, like the left side of the strands of hair. It might just be your preference. But you gotta do it where it makes sense. So for his headband, there weren't too many shadows. I just put a few, but there weren't too many shadows I could add because none of them made sense to me. But this is just how I get better at shading, and it reflects on my traditional art because my shadows look way better now than they did back then. I can guarantee you that. So for his skin, I picked his coat. His coat, wherever the wrinkles, I thought the wrinkles would make sense. I drew it in drastically darker orange. At first, I was apprehensive, but in the end, I started to like it. So, some things could just grow on you. You just got the trial and error. But this piece actually turned out really nice, and it is traced, so I can't take full credit because, I didn't draw it by hand. But I will be doing that one day just for fun, just to see the difference. But yeah, the finishing result. Now, we had to add the grays inside of his coat because that's where light wasn't getting to at all. And you can't really highlight white, so you just don't do nothing for it. And then for his skin, we just use like a darker, more peachy / orangey color to highlight where I thought made sense. In the folds of his finger. If you actually hold it up in front of you now, you can see the darker spots versus the lighter spots. That's not what I did, but that's the way to help as well. And by the end of this piece, I really liked it. And we're coming to the ending now. I just shaded his thumb because it was like a last minute decision. I said, you know what, I'm going to shade it just to see what it looks like. And there you go, Naruto. He looks pretty good, if you ask me. So I had to sign it, and I put the date right at the top so you could tell exactly when I did this. And there you go, Naruto. And I really recommend watching the anime.